Jake Morrison wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the broken alien machine in front of him. The blue lights on its surface flickered like a dying star. He had been working on Kepler Station for 6 months now, fixing machines that came from worlds he had never seen. The pay was good and the work kept him busy. The station was huge, floating in space between 3 different star systems. Ships came and went every day, bringing traders, diplomats, and travelers from dozens of different alien races. Jake had seen many strange beings during his time here, but he still felt amazed by how different they all were. He picked up his tools and headed toward the cantina. After 12 hours of work, he needed a drink and some food. The cantina was always crowded, filled with the sounds of different languages and the smell of exotic foods. Jake found his usual table in the corner and ordered a beer. That was when he saw her. She sat alone at a table near the window, staring out at the stars. Her skin was a beautiful blue color that seemed to shine with its own light. Her hair looked like it was made of tiny crystals that caught the light from the station's lamps. She wore elegant clothes that marked her as someone important, but her face showed deep sadness. Jake had never seen a Valaxian before, but he knew what she was from the stories other traders told. They came from a rich world far away, ruled by noble families who controlled vast mining operations across their part of the galaxy. The woman looked around the cantina, her eyes searching for something or someone. When her gaze met Jake's, she stood up and walked toward his table. Jake felt nervous. Important aliens usually did not talk to human engineers. "Excuse me," she said in perfect English, though her accent was musical and strange. "Are you human?" "Yes," Jake replied, setting down his beer. "I'm Jake Morrison."
"Can I help you with something?"
She looked around carefully, then sat down across from him without being invited. "My name is Zarathiel. I need to ask you something very important. Something that might sound crazy." Jake studied her face. Up close, he could see that her blue skin had patterns like tiny scales, and her eyes were larger than human eyes, colored like deep purple gems. She was beautiful in a way that was completely alien, but her expression was desperate. "I'm listening," Jake said. Zarathiel took a deep breath. "I need someone to marry me today before 3 days pass." Jake nearly choked on his beer. "What?" "Please let me explain," she said quickly. "My husband died exactly 1 year ago. According to the laws of my people, I must marry again within 1 year and 3 days of his death, or I will lose everything he left me." "That's a strange law," Jake said. "My people have many strange laws," Zarathiel replied bitterly, "but this one will destroy me if I cannot find a husband in the next 3 days. Jake leaned back in his chair. "Why me? Why not someone from your own people?" "Because everyone from my world knows about my situation. They know that my husband's brother, Lord Kethavar, wants to take control of our family's business. If I marry another Valaxian, it will be seen as a political move. There will be fighting, maybe even war." She paused, looking down at her hands. "But humans are different. Your people are new to this part of the galaxy. A marriage to a human would be seen as neutral. It would not threaten anyone's power." "What exactly did your husband leave you?" Jake asked. "Mining operations on 17 different worlds. Factories, ships, and more money than most planets see in 100 years. But more than that, he left me the responsibility to protect thousands of workers and their families." Zarathiel's voice became urgent. "Lord Kethavar believes in the old ways. He thinks workers are property to be used and thrown away. If he gets control of our business, many people will suffer. Some will die." Jake stared at her. "And you think marrying me will stop him?" "Yes, but only if you agree to it freely. Valaxian law requires that both people in a marriage must choose it willingly. No one can be forced." "What would you want from me?" Jake asked. "Nothing more than your name on a marriage contract. After I secure my inheritance, we can divorce quietly. I will pay you well for this service." Jake thought about it. The idea was crazy, but the woman seemed sincere. "How much money are we talking about?" "Enough to buy your own ship and never work for anyone else again, if that is what you want." Before Jake could answer, a commotion started near the cantina's entrance. 3 large aliens in dark uniforms had entered, and were looking around the room. Zarathiel saw them and went pale. "Kethavar's men," she whispered. "They found me." Jake looked at the aliens. They were Valaxians too, but bigger and meaner looking than Zarathiel. They had weapons on their belts and scars on their faces. One of them pointed in their direction. "What do they want?" Jake asked. "To make sure I never reach the deadline," Zarathiel said. "If I die before the 3 days are up, Kethavar automatically inherits everything." The three aliens started walking toward their table. Jake made a quick decision. He stood up and took Zarathiel's hand. "Come on," he said. "Let's get out of here." They moved quickly toward the back exit of the cantina. Jake knew the station well from his work, and he led Zarathiel through maintenance corridors that most visitors never saw. Behind them, he could hear the aliens shouting and following. "Why are you helping me?" Zarathiel asked as they ran. "Because I don't like bullies," Jake replied. "And because you're right about one thing. This does sound crazy enough to be interesting." They reached Jake's quarters in the engineering section of the station. He locked the door and activated the privacy screen that would block any scanning devices. "You'll be safe here for now," Jake said. "But we need to talk more about this marriage idea. And we need to figure out how to deal with those guys who are chasing you." Zarathiel sat down on Jake's couch, looking tired and grateful. "Thank you for helping me. Most people would have walked away." "Most people aren't human," Jake said with a small smile. "We have a habit of getting involved in things that aren't our business." Outside, they could hear the aliens searching the corridors, but Jake's quarters were hidden deep in the engineering section. They had time to plan, but not much. The clock was ticking, and in 3 days everything would change. Jake made coffee while Zarathiel sat quietly on his couch. His quarters were small but comfortable, filled with tools and machine parts from his work. The alien woman looked out of place among his simple belongings like a jewel in a toolbox. "Tell me more about your husband," Jake said, handing her a cup of coffee. "What kind of man was he?" Zarathiel's eyes softened. Commander Veltar was different from other nobles. He believed that all beings deserved fair treatment no matter what species they were, or what family they came from. She sipped the coffee and made a face. Human drinks were much stronger than what her people usually had. "When we married, I thought it was just a political arrangement. Our families wanted to combine their mining operations. But Veltar showed me a different way to think about power." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "He used our wealth to build schools and hospitals on the mining worlds. He paid workers fair wages and gave them safe places to live. Other nobles called him weak, but the workers loved him." Jake sat down across from her. "And his brother doesn't agree with that approach?" "Lord Cathavar thinks workers are tools, nothing more. He believes the strong should rule the weak without mercy. When Veltar died in a mining accident, Cathavar immediately started changing things. He cut wages, closed the schools, and forced families to work longer hours." Zarathiel's voice became angry. "But he could not touch the main operations because I still held the inheritance rights. That is why he needs me to fail now. If I miss the deadline, everything goes to him by law." "How many people are we talking about?" Jake asked. "Nearly 50,000 workers and their families across 17 worlds. Most of them are not Valaxians. They are Krathari, Bendani, and other species that Cathavar sees as inferior." Jake thought about the numbers. 50,000 people was more than lived on some entire human colonies. "What happens to them if Cathavar takes over?" "Slavery," Zarathiel said simply. "He will not call it that, but that is what it will be. Long hours, no pay, no freedom to leave. Those who complain will disappear." Before Jake could respond, his door chimed. He looked at the security monitor and saw Captain Lisa Carter from the human ship New Horizon. Lisa was a friend, and Jake trusted her judgment about people and situations. "It's okay," Jake told Zarathiel. "She's someone I trust." He opened the door and Lisa walked in. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and the confident walk of someone used to command. When she saw Zarathiel, her hand moved toward her weapon. "Jake, what's going on?" Security reported some trouble in the cantina, and now there are armed Valaxians searching the station. "It's complicated," Jake said. He introduced Zarathiel and explained the situation quickly. Lisa listened without interrupting, but her expression grew more serious with each detail. "This is bigger than just a marriage problem," Lisa said when Jake finished. "If this Cathavar character is as bad as she says, we could be looking at a humanitarian crisis." "You believe her?" Jake asked. "I've heard stories about the Valaxian noble families. Most of them are not pleasant." Lisa turned to Zarathiel. "Can you prove what you're saying about your husband's work?" Zarathiel reached into her clothing and pulled out a small device. She activated it, and a holographic display appeared showing documents, pictures, and video records. "These are reports from the mining worlds," she said. "School attendance records, medical clinic usage, worker satisfaction surveys. Veltar documented everything to show the other nobles that treating workers well actually increased productivity." Lisa studied the data. "These numbers are impressive. Worker output increased by 30% when they were treated better. Yes, but Kethvar does not care about long-term success. He wants immediate profits even if it destroys everything in the future. Jake looked at more of the records. He saw pictures of alien children in classrooms, families in clean housing, workers receiving medical care. Then he saw the newer reports from after Veltar's death. School closures, hospital shutdowns, worker protests that were violently suppressed. This is wrong, Jake said. People shouldn't have to live like this. That is why I need your help, Zarathiel said. Humans have a reputation in this part of the galaxy. You are known for standing up to bullies even when the odds are against you. Lisa raised an eyebrow. What kind of reputation? The war with the Hegari Empire, Zarathiel explained. Every species in the galaxy heard how humans fought against impossible odds to protect innocent people. You could have negotiated for just your own safety, but you fought for everyone. Jake remembered the Hegari War. It had ended 2 years ago, but the human fleet had made quite an impression on their alien neighbors. That was different. That was about survival. This is also about survival, Zarathiel said. The survival of thousands of families who cannot protect themselves. Lisa was quiet for a moment, thinking. Jake, if you're considering this, you need to understand what you're getting into. Valaxian marriage contracts are not like human ones. They involve something called psychic bonding. What does that mean? Jake asked. Zarathiel looked uncomfortable. It means that during the ceremony our minds will touch. You will experience some of my memories and emotions, and I will experience yours. It is how my people ensure that marriages are real and not just political arrangements. That sounds invasive, Jake said. It is temporary, Zarathiel assured him. The connection fades after a few days, but I understand if you are not comfortable with it. Jake's door chimed again. This time it was Ben Rodriguez, Jake's best friend and the security chief from the New Horizon. Ben was shorter than Jake but built like a soldier with dark hair and serious eyes. We have a problem, Ben said as soon as Jake let him in. Those Valaxians who were looking for your friend? They're not just searching anymore. They're setting up some kind of equipment in the station's central hub. What kind of equipment? Lisa asked. My technical scanner says it's some sort of jamming device. If they activate it, it will block all communications in and out of the station. Zarathiel went pale. They are going to trap me here. If I cannot reach a Valaxian official to register the marriage, it will not be legal under our law. How long do we have? Jake asked. Maybe 6 hours before they finish setting up, Ben replied. After that, this station becomes a dead zone. Jake looked around the room at the 3 people who had become involved in his problem. Lisa represented duty and military thinking. Ben represented loyalty and protection. Zarathiel represented hope for thousands of people he would never meet. If I agree to this, Jake said slowly, what exactly do we need to do? Find a way to contact a Valaxian marriage official and complete the ceremony before Kethvar's people can stop us, Zarathiel said. But they will try to kill me before that happens. Then we need to be smarter than they are, Lisa said. Jake, this is your choice, but if you decide to help her, you'll have the support of the New Horizon crew. Why would you risk your ship for this? Zarathiel asked. Lisa smiled grimly. Because Jake is right. We don't like bullies either, and because humans have a bad habit of doing what's right instead of what's easy. Jake thought about the pictures he had seen. Children in schools, families with hope for a better future, workers who could provide for their families with dignity. Then he thought about what would happen if Kethvar won. Okay, Jake said. I'll do it. But we're going to do this the human way. What does that mean? Zarathiel asked. Jake grinned. It means we're going to cause some trouble. Jake's plan was simple, which made it dangerous. Simple plans could go wrong in many ways, but they were also hard for enemies to predict. We're going to split up, Jake explained to the group. Ben, you take a team and create a distraction in the commercial sector. Make it loud and obvious. Draw as many of Kethvar's people away from the central hub as possible. Ben nodded. What kind of distraction? Use your imagination. Maybe some human traders are having a disagreement about shipping rights. You know how emotional we can get about business. Lisa smiled at that. Humans had a reputation for being unpredictable when it came to negotiations. And while Ben is causing chaos, you and I will get Zarathiel to the communications center. We need to contact a Valaxian official who can perform the marriage ceremony remotely. That will not be easy, Zarathiel said. Kethvar has influence with many officials. They might refuse to help. Then we'll find one who isn't corrupt, Jake replied. There have to be some honest people in your government. My cousin, Magistrate Deralvin serves on the High Council, Zarathiel said thoughtfully. He was a friend of my husband and believes in the same ideals. But reaching him will be difficult. Jake looked at his watch. They had been talking for 3 hours and time was running out. Dr. Amy Walsh from our medical team is meeting us at the communication center. She's been studying Valaxian marriage customs to make sure we do everything correctly. Why is that important? Ben asked. Because if we make any mistakes in the ceremony, Kethvar can challenge the marriage in court later. Everything has to be perfect. They prepared to leave Jake's quarters. Lisa and Ben checked their weapons while Jake gathered some special tools from his workshop. Zarathiel watched him work with curiosity. What are those for? She asked. Insurance, Jake replied, putting several small devices in his tool belt. Human engineering meets alien technology. If things go wrong, I want to be ready. They left through different exits. Ben headed toward the commercial sector with 2 other human security officers. Lisa and Jake escorted Zarathiel through the maintenance tunnels toward the station's central core. The tunnels were dark and narrow, built for machinery rather than people. Jake knew them well from his repair work, but moving through them quietly with 3 people was challenging. They could hear Kethvar's soldiers searching other parts of the station, their heavy footsteps echoing through the metal corridors. How much further? Lisa whispered. 2 more levels down, Jake replied. The communications center is right next to the main power grid. They climbed down a service ladder and emerged in a corridor filled with humming machinery. The sound would cover any noise they made, but it also meant they wouldn't hear enemies approaching. That was when the first attack came. A blast of energy hit the wall next to Jake's head, leaving a smoking hole in the metal. 3 of Kethvar's soldiers had found them, armed with military-grade weapons. Run, Lisa shouted, pushing Zarathiel behind a large power converter. Jake pulled out one of his devices and activated it. The corridor lights went out, plunging them into darkness. But Jake had spent months working in these tunnels. He knew every pipe, wire, and junction box. This way, he called, leading them deeper into the machinery maze. The soldiers followed, but they moved slowly in the dark. Jake used that advantage, leading his group through passages too narrow for the larger Valaxians to follow easily. Jake, Lisa said as they paused behind a transformer. We need to reach that communications center. I know. But first we need to deal with these guys. Jake activated another device. Suddenly the maintenance robots throughout the level began moving in coordinated patterns. He had reprogrammed them to create confusion and block certain corridors. How did you do that? Zarathiel asked in amazement. Humans are good at making things work together in new ways, Jake replied. Your husband's people built these tunnels. My people figured out how to use them better. They reached the communications center but found 2 more soldiers guarding it. Lisa and Jake exchanged looks. They needed to get inside, but a firefight would bring more enemies. Wait here, Jake told them. He opened a maintenance panel and started working with the wires inside. What are you doing? Lisa asked. Something my grandfather taught me about electrical systems, Jake replied. He was an electrician back on Earth. Said electricity doesn't care about politics. Jake connected several wires in a new pattern. Suddenly, the floor in front of the communications center became electrified. The 2 guards jumped back in surprise, then found they couldn't approach the door without getting shocked. That should keep them busy, Jake said with satisfaction. They entered the communications center, while the guards tried to figure out how to disable Jake's electrical trap. Dr. Amy Walsh was already there, having arrived through a different route. She was a small woman with red hair and the calm demeanor of someone used to working under pressure. I've established contact with Magistrate Deralvin, Amy reported. He's standing by to perform the ceremony, but we need to hurry. Kethvar's people are jamming some frequencies. Zarathiel stepped in front of the communication screen. A dignified Valaxian male appeared, his blue skin marked with the silver patterns that indicated high rank. Cousin, Deralvin said in Valaxian, then switched to English for the human's benefit. I understand you wish to marry this human. Yes, Magistrate. According to our law, I have the right to choose my husband freely. Indeed. And you, human Jake Morrison, do you enter this marriage willingly and with full understanding of its meaning? Jake looked at Zarathiel. During their escape through the tunnels, he had seen her courage and determination. She wasn't just a desperate woman trying to save her inheritance. She was a leader trying to protect her people. Yes, Jake said. I understand what this means. The ceremony began with Darrelvin reading ancient words in the Valaxian language. Jake didn't understand most of it, but he could feel something strange starting to happen. The air around him seemed to shimmer, and he could sense Zarathiel's presence in a way that had nothing to do with his normal senses. That was when Kethvar's soldiers broke through the electrical barrier. "Keep going," Lisa shouted, drawing her weapon to hold them off. Energy blasts filled the communications center. Amy dove behind a console, trying to keep the connection with Darrelvin stable. Jake and Zarathiel stood in front of the screen, continuing the ceremony while the battle raged around them. "The rings," Amy called out. "You need to exchange rings for the ceremony to be complete." Jake didn't have a ring, but he quickly pulled a metal band from one of his tools. It was just a simple connector ring used in electronics, but Zarathiel accepted it with a smile. She gave him a ring from her finger, made of the same crystal-like material as her hair. The moment they exchanged rings, Jake felt a rush of memories and emotions that weren't his own. He saw Veltar through Zarathiel's eyes, a noble man who truly cared about justice. He felt her pain at losing him, and her determination to continue his work. He experienced her fear during the past year as Kethvar slowly destroyed everything her husband had built. At the same time, Zarathiel experienced Jake's memories. She saw Earth, his childhood, his decision to leave his home planet to work among the stars. She felt his natural instinct to help people in trouble, and his belief that all beings deserve to be treated with dignity. "The bond is complete," Darrelvin announced. "By the laws of Velax Prime, you are now married. The inheritance rights transfer immediately." Just as the magistrate finished speaking, the communication screen went dead. Kethvar's jamming equipment had finally blocked the signal, but it was too late. The ceremony was finished and the marriage was legal. Jake felt different. The psychic bond with Zarathiel was still active, allowing him to sense her emotions and some of her thoughts. It was strange but not unpleasant, like having a new sense he had never used before. "We did it," Zarathiel said, relief clear in her voice. "Not yet," Lisa replied, still firing at the soldiers. "We still need to get out of here alive." That was when Jake's human engineering skills really showed their value. Using his knowledge of the station's systems and some creative thinking, he turned the entire communications center into a fortress. He rerouted power to create electromagnetic barriers, activated fire suppression systems to create concealing fog, and even managed to turn the artificial gravity generators into weapons by creating localized gravity wells that trapped the attacking soldiers. By the time Ben arrived with reinforcements, the battle was over. Kethavar's soldiers were either unconscious or trapped by Jake's improvised defenses. "Impressive," Ben said, looking around at the chaos. "Remind me never to get you angry in an engineering section." Jake helped Zarathiel to her feet. The psychic bond was already starting to fade, but he could still sense her gratitude and something else, the beginning of genuine respect and friendship. "So," Jake said, "I guess this makes us married now." "Yes," Zarathiel replied with a smile. "But I think this is just the beginning of our problems." She was right. Through their psychic link, Jake could sense that Kethvar would not give up easily. The marriage was legal, but keeping it that way would require more human ingenuity. 3 days after the wedding, Jake discovered that marrying an alien was more complicated than he had expected. The psychic bond with Zarathiel should have faded by now, but instead it seemed to be getting stronger. "This is not normal," Dr. Amy Walsh said, studying the readings from her medical scanner. "According to Valaxian physiology texts, the psychic connection should be almost gone by now." Jake sat on the examination table in the New Horizons medical bay. He could still sense Zarathiel's emotions, even though she was in her quarters on the other side of the ship. Right now, she was worried about the same thing they were discussing. "Maybe it's because I'm human," Jake suggested. "We don't process things the same way other species do." "That's what concerns me," Amy replied. "Human brains are more adaptable than most alien nervous systems. It's possible that your neural pathways have permanently adapted to the psychic connection." Captain Lisa Carter entered the medical bay with a serious expression. "We have bigger problems than Jake's brain chemistry. The Valaxian High Council wants to talk to both of you. Now, is that good or bad?" Jake asked. "Probably bad. They're sending Counselor Mordeth, who is known for being suspicious of other species. He thinks aliens are a threat to Valaxian purity." Zarathiel arrived at the medical bay, having sensed through their bond that something important was happening. She looked tired and stressed. Managing her inherited business empire from a human ship was not easy. "Mordeth is here?" she asked. "This is worse than I thought. He has been trying to restrict contact with other species for years." "What does he want?" Jake asked. "To examine our marriage," Zarathiel replied. "The High Council has never seen a permanent psychic bond with a non-Valaxian before. They are concerned about what it might mean." An hour later, they sat in the New Horizons main conference room, facing Counselor Mordeth via holographic communication. The counselor was an old Valaxian with dark blue skin marked by intricate silver patterns that showed his high rank. His purple eyes studied Jake with obvious distrust. "Human Jake Morrison," Mordeth said in accented English, "you have created an unprecedented situation. Never before has a psychic marriage bond persisted beyond the normal time period." "I didn't know it was unusual," Jake replied honestly. "It just happened." "Yes, and that is what worries the High Council. Your species appears to have unknown psychic capabilities that could threaten our security." Zarathiel leaned forward. "Counselor, with respect, my husband poses no threat to anyone. The bond has only strengthened our partnership." "Partnership?" Mordeth's eyes narrowed. "This was supposed to be a marriage of convenience, nothing more. Now you speak of partnership as if this human is truly your equal." "He is my equal," Zarathiel said firmly. "The bond has shown me his character and his intentions. He married me to help protect innocent people, not for personal gain. The High Council finds this concerning. We demand that the bond be severed immediately, before it can spread to other humans or cause unknown effects." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, both his own and Zarathiel's. "What do you mean severed?" "There is a medical procedure that can break psychic bonds," Mordeth explained. "It is usually used in cases of divorce or when one partner dies. However, breaking a bond this strong could be dangerous to both participants." "How dangerous?" Amy asked, her medical training making her focus on the practical concerns. "Brain damage or death," Mordeth replied without emotion. "But these risks are acceptable to protect Valaxian security interests." "No," Jake said firmly. "I won't do it, and I refuse as well," Zarathiel added. "This bond harms no one and helps me serve my people better." Mordeth's expression grew cold. "You may not have a choice. The High Council has the authority to order medical intervention in cases involving potential threats to our species." Chief Engineer Carlos Lopez, who had been quietly working at a computer terminal, looked up with interest. "Counselor, if I may interrupt, I've been analyzing the psychic bond using our ship's sensors. The readings are quite fascinating." "Explain," Mordeth demanded. Carlos activated a holographic display showing brain scans and energy patterns. "The bond isn't just connecting their minds. It's creating entirely new neural pathways in both subjects. Jake's human brain is actually adapting to process Valaxian psychic energy, while Zarathiel's mind is learning to interpret human thought patterns. This proves our point," Mordeth said. "Such changes could be dangerous. Or revolutionary," Carlos continued. "This could be the key to perfect interspecies communication. Imagine if we could create controlled psychic interfaces that would allow different species to truly understand each other." Jake felt a spark of excitement through his bond with Zarathiel. She was thinking the same thing he was. This could change everything. "The High Council is not interested in your theories," Mordeth said dismissively. "We are concerned about security threats." "With respect, Counselor," Lisa interjected, "the only threat here seems to be your closed-minded approach to new possibilities." Mordeth's face showed anger. "Humans always think they know better than species with thousands of years more experience. Your arrogance will be your downfall." That was when Jake's human stubbornness really showed itself. Instead of being intimidated by the counselor's threats, he became more determined. "You know what, Counselor? You're right about one thing. Humans do think differently. We look at problems and see opportunities. We see differences and look for ways to build bridges." Jake stood up, feeling Zarathiel's support flowing through their bond. "You want to break our marriage because you're afraid of what it represents. You're afraid that cooperation between species might be better than the isolation you prefer. You do not understand the complexities of galactic politics," Mordeth replied. "Maybe not," Jake admitted, "but I understand people. And I know that fear and suspicion never solve anything." Amy had been studying Carlos's data while the argument continued. "Counselor, if I may make a medical observation. The brain scans show that both Jake and Zarathiel are healthier now than they were before the bond formed. Their stress levels are lower, their cognitive function is improved, and their emotional stability is enhanced. This is irrelevant, Mordeth said. Is it? Zarathiel asked. You claim to be concerned about threats to our people. But what if this bond could help prevent conflicts instead of causing them? What if better understanding between species could reduce the wars and misunderstandings that have plagued the galaxy for centuries? Through their psychic connection, Jake could feel Zarathiel's passion for her idea. She wasn't just defending their marriage anymore. She was envisioning a future where the barriers between species could be lowered through understanding rather than force. The High Council will not permit experimental procedures on Valaxian citizens, Mordeth stated firmly. Then don't call it an experiment, Jake said. Call it a marriage. Two people from different species who chose to work together for the benefit of everyone. You have 24 hours to agree to the bond severance procedure, Mordeth announced. If you refuse, the High Council will consider you both to be security threats and act accordingly. The holographic communication ended, leaving the room in tense silence. Well, Ben said from where he had been quietly observing, that could have gone better. Jake looked around at his friends and colleagues. All of them were human, and all of them had the same expression he recognized from his childhood. It was the look humans got when someone told them something was impossible. You know what? Jake said to Zarathiel, I think it's time we showed the galaxy what humans do when people try to push us around. Through their bond, he felt her agreement and determination. Whatever happened next, they would face it together, and they would do it the human way, by refusing to accept that some problems couldn't be solved. Jake spent the night thinking about impossible problems and human solutions. By morning, he had an idea that was either brilliant or completely crazy. Knowing humans, it was probably both. You want to do what? Lisa asked when Jake explained his plan to the senior staff. Turn the problem into an opportunity, Jake replied. The Valaxian High Council is afraid of our psychic bond because they don't understand it. So let's help them understand. Zarathiel felt his excitement through their mental connection. Explain, she said. We invite them to study the bond instead of destroying it. Make it into a research project instead of a threat. Show them how it could benefit everyone. Dr. Amy Walsh looked thoughtful. That's actually not a bad idea from a scientific perspective. This bond is unique in recorded history. The medical applications alone could be enormous. But will they listen? Ben asked. This Mordeth guy doesn't seem interested in cooperation. That's why we're not going to ask Mordeth, Jake said with a grin. We're going to go over his head. Through their bond, Jake could feel Zarathiel's understanding and approval. She knew exactly what he meant. The Emperor, she said. We appeal directly to Emperor Katalmor. He has the authority to overrule the High Council if he sees sufficient benefit. Can we reach him? Lisa asked. I can, Zarathiel replied. My family has the right to request an audience for matters of imperial importance. And this definitely qualifies. Carlos looked up from his computer terminal. I've been working on something that might help. Remember how the bond is creating new neural pathways? I think I can map those pathways and show exactly how the psychic connection works. That could be very useful, Amy added. If we can demonstrate that the bond is not only safe but beneficial, it changes the entire discussion. 2 hours later, they were aboard a Valaxian diplomatic vessel heading toward the Imperial homeworld. The ship had been sent by Emperor Katalmor himself, after Zarathiel's urgent message reached him. Jake was impressed by how quickly the Emperor had responded. The journey took 3 days, during which Jake and Zarathiel worked with Carlos and Amy to document everything about their psychic bond. They recorded brain scans, tested their enhanced communication abilities, and measured the emotional and psychological benefits they had experienced. This is remarkable, Amy said, reviewing the data. Your stress hormones have decreased by 40% since the bond formed. Your problem-solving abilities have improved. You're actually functioning better as individuals because of your connection. Jake could feel Zarathiel's amazement through their bond. Neither of them had realized how much the connection was helping them. When they arrived at Velax Prime, Jake was stunned by the beauty of the planet. Crystal cities rose from blue oceans under a purple sky. The architecture was elegant and flowing, like music made into buildings. The Imperial Palace was even more impressive. Made entirely of the same crystal material as Valaxian hair, it seemed to glow with inner light. Jake felt nervous as they were escorted through corridors filled with alien art and history. Emperor Katalmor received them in a circular chamber with walls that showed the stars. He was an ancient Valaxian with skin so pale it was almost white, marked with golden patterns instead of silver. His presence radiated wisdom and power. "Zarathiel," the Emperor said in a voice like distant music, "you have created quite a disturbance. Counselor Mordeth insists that your human husband poses a threat to our entire species." "Your Majesty," Zarathiel replied formally, "I believe my husband represents an opportunity, not a threat." The Emperor turned his large purple eyes to Jake. "And you, human Jake Morrison, you willingly bonded your mind to an alien consciousness. Why?" Jake felt the weight of the Emperor's attention, but he answered honestly, "Because it was the right thing to do, Your Majesty. Zarathiel needed help protecting innocent people. The psychic bond was an unexpected result, but not an unwelcome one." "Show me," the Emperor commanded. Carlos activated his holographic display, showing the brain scans and neural mapping he had created. The data painted a clear picture of two minds learning to work together in harmony. "As you can see, Your Majesty," Carlos explained, "the bond has created new pathways for communication and understanding. Both subjects show improved cognitive function and emotional stability." Amy stepped forward with her medical report. "From a health perspective, the bond appears to be entirely beneficial. It reduces stress, improves decision-making, and enhances empathy between the bonded individuals." The Emperor studied the data carefully. "This is indeed unprecedented, but Counselor Mordeth raises valid concerns about security implications." "Your Majesty," Jake said, "may I suggest a different way to look at this?" The Emperor nodded for him to continue. "Every species in the galaxy has fought wars because of misunderstandings and fear. We attack what we don't understand. But what if we could truly understand each other? What if diplomatic missions included bonded pairs who could communicate without the barriers of language and cultural differences?" Through their bond, Jake felt Zarathiel's excitement as she picked up his thought. "Imagine trade negotiations where both sides could sense each other's true intentions," she added. "Or peace treaties where the participants could actually feel each other's desire for harmony." "You propose to use this bond as a tool for galactic diplomacy?" the Emperor asked. "We propose to use it as a bridge between species," Jake replied. "Humans have always been good at building bridges. Let us build one here." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment, considering their words. Finally he spoke. "There is wisdom in what you suggest, but such a program would require careful study and gradual implementation." "We volunteer to be the test subjects," Zarathiel said immediately. "Let your scientists study our bond. Use us as a proof of concept." Admiral Patricia Stone, who had been silent during the audience, finally spoke. "Your Majesty, the human government would be honored to participate in such a program. We believe that better understanding between species serves everyone's interests." The Emperor smiled, the first time his expression had changed during the meeting. "Very well. I will establish a joint research program to study interspecies psychic bonding. Jake Morrison and Zarathiel will serve as the primary research subjects, but they will also help design protocols for future bonding experiments." "What about Counselor Mordeth and the High Council?" Zarathiel asked. "They will adapt to this decision," the Emperor said firmly, "or they will find new positions that better suit their talents." 6 months later, Jake stood in the observation deck of the first human Valaxian research station, watching ships from dozens of different species arrive for the inaugural Interspecies Understanding Conference. Through his bond with Zarathiel, he could feel her satisfaction as she coordinated the complex logistics of hosting so many different cultures. "The Krathari delegation just arrived," she told him, through their mental link. "They're very interested in participating in the bonding trials." Jake smiled. The research program had exceeded everyone's expectations. They had successfully created temporary psychic bonds between volunteers from 7 different species, leading to breakthroughs in diplomacy, trade, and scientific cooperation. "Any word from the mining worlds?" Jake asked. "Production is up 60%, Zarathiel replied with happiness flowing through their bond. "When workers feel that their supervisors truly understand their needs and concerns, they work much better." Ben Rodriguez walked up to join Jake at the observation window. "Hard to believe this all started because an alien woman asked you to marry her in a space station cantina." "The best human stories usually start with someone asking for help," Jake replied. "We just happened to say yes." Dr. Amy Walsh joined them carrying a datapad with the latest research results. "The new bonding protocols are working perfectly. We can now create controlled temporary psychic connections that last exactly as long as needed for specific purposes. What about permanent bonds like ours? Jake asked. Still unique, Amy replied. The combination of Valaxian psychic ability and human neural adaptability creates something that can't be replicated with other species combinations. You two are still special. Through their bond, Jake felt Zarathiel's amusement. She was thinking the same thing he was. They had started as strangers brought together by desperation, but they had become true partners working toward a common goal. Jake, Zarathiel said, appearing at his side, the ceremony is about to begin. Are you ready to address the conference? Jake looked out at the assembled ships representing dozens of worlds and species. A year ago, he had been a simple engineer fixing machines on a space station. Now he was helping to build a future where different species could truly understand each other. You know what? Jake said, taking Zarathiel's hand and feeling their bond pulse with shared determination. I think we're just getting started. The human way forward wasn't about conquering or dominating. It was about building bridges, solving problems, and never accepting that something was impossible just because no one had done it before. And sometimes it was about saying yes when someone asked for help, even if the request seemed crazy. As they walked toward the conference hall together, Jake reflected that this was probably the strangest marriage in galactic history, but it was also proof that the best solutions